It's way more egregious than I expected. You know, I thought there were donations and people were giving money, but there are some people probably giving money for the noblest of reasons to the foundation. Some people not apparently giving money not for the noblest of reasons. And this uranium story, where there's a connection where the Secretary of State nominally sits on this government body which gives okays to mergers with national security implications, and then a company deeply involved in that kind of merger giving lots of money in the opportune moment to the Clinton Foundation. According to my newspaper, the foundation not reporting it really adequately. That's reasonably stark.
All right, and that's David Brooks. And joining us now is Bill Kristol, founder and editor of the Weekly Standard, ABC News contributor. Bill, let me start with this. You know, every time since the last time we spoke, there's more and more and more and more and more. I mean, how much trouble is she in politically, if not legally?
She's in trouble, real trouble, the moment a Democratic candidate or potential candidate, elected official, attacks her. You know, if it's just the media, it's sort of, you know, fine, but if there's no legal, you know, if ultimately she's not prosecuted by this justice, and I think that's unlikely from this Justice Department, it'll just be noise and she'll manage to slough it off. Some Democrat has to stand up and say, in addition to differing with her on issues probably, like her being too close to Wall Street and so forth, has to say, look, there are such serious ethics questions about Hillary Clinton that she shouldn't be our nominee for president. The moment anyone says that, O'Malley, Sanders, Jim Webb, obviously Elizabeth Warren, but it doesn't have to be a high profile. Anyone who's elected who might run, it takes it to a whole different level. Otherwise, it's sort of, you know, it's such a difference if a Democrat has the nerve to say that Hillary Clinton should not be our nominee. That's the moment it gets real serious.
Yeah, and you know, we hear so much about how they went to Nixon and said, you know, Mr. President, it's time. Right. Can you picture, forget the O'Malleys and the aforementioned lower-level possible candidates, could you see a significant party member or sitting member of the Senate or the House actually doing that?
Seems hard to believe, but the Clintons have a pretty good machine going there, and she'll be the first woman president. But you're right, the Nixon. I hadn't really thought about the Nixon analogy. That's not a bad one. It wasn't just the people privately came to him. People publicly said, "I'm sorry, I can't support Richard Nixon anymore." Howard Baker, James Buckley,
right,
the very distinguished conservative senator from New York. So that's the question: is someone of stature going to, or even someone who's just an elected Democratic official, going to say, "I'm sorry, too much. This is just too much."
Yeah, very, very interesting. All right, let's switch gears. You were in Las Vegas at the RJC convention. Adelson was there, and George W. Bush actually spoke. It was closed to the press. I don't know if you were in there or not, but you know a lot about what he had to say, and finally taking off the gloves, if you will, and criticizing Obama.
Yeah, I had another commitment that evening, but I talked to many people who were there. He really surprised, kind of frankly, scheduled something else. I thought, well, President Bush is a wonderful guy, but he's not going to say anything. He's been so cautious over the last, polite and deferential over the last 6 years. But he did kind of take off the gloves. I mean, it was clear. I talked to someone who knows Bush and followed him closely, watched him closely there, and he's just disgusted, I think, frankly, by President Obama's job performance, and that he's frittered away the gains that we sacrificed so much more for in Iraq. When Bush spoke powerfully about, look, when things weren't going well in Iraq, I called the commanders in and I said, do we have to change strategy? And we did change strategy. Now things fall apart in Iraq, and Obama doesn't rethink anything. He was very tough on the Iran deal. He said he would never let the sanctions go off until there was proof of performance, instead of letting them go at the beginning. The sanctions, he thinks, were squeezing the Iranian regime. He has no faith in this Iran deal. So I think he let people see his views, and I think he really feels personally that, he's very, more than I would be, he's very, deferential to the next president, and sort of doesn't want to be a public critic of his. But I think he's deeply worried about the future of the country.
Well, he certainly proved that he could contain himself for 7 years or 6+ years. So I think he did a good job. All right, I heard from another guest that was there also that he spoke to Ari Fleischer, and Fleischer on the board of the RJC indicated that right now it's Bush and Scott Walker that appear to be the two top candidates, or that they favor because they have a chance to win, and Rubio moving up. What's your take on who that?
I'd say Bush support was a little less than I would have expected. I think Rubio and Walker, a lot of sentiment for both, especially Rubio. I would say, though, the big story of the weekend actually was Cruz. Ted Cruz gave a speech, and this has been reported elsewhere, so I don't feel I'm violating the off-the-record rules, that was just outstanding on Saturday morning. 5 standing ovations. I've seen Cruz many times, and he's always good. But at times, at times he can be a little overbearing or a little preachy or a little maybe not quite in sync with the audience. He really hit on all cylinders. And the people were, many people, I know a lot of those people over the years. I talked to them before this event, before Cruz's talk, and it was sort of, well, I respect Cruz, he's good on Israel, but, we couldn't nominate him, he's too conservative, and he's too confrontational, and I got some real questions.
And they changed their
coming
mind.
out, it was, boy, that was something. I still worried that maybe he couldn't win, but boy, I got to rethink this. I mean, that was something else.
Interesting. Bill Kristol, always great talking to you, sir.
Thanks, Steve. Be well.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, when we come back, author of The War on Men, Susan Venker will join us. Don't go away.